Who I really want to talk to is Blue Cantrell. Jay-Z worked very hard to erase you and me, just like he did Elle, just like he did his relationship with R. Kelly, just like he did his relationship with Aaliyah. She was definitely blackballed, but she was blackballed for a reason. You made a choice to work with someone, and you probably didn't realize how nefarious he was when you got involved with him. I didn't. Blue, it's time to talk. It's time for you to sing again.
Oh my God!
I heard he sounds like a horse, Blue.
Oh my God!
People need to know why you left. People need to know. Your fans deserve to know the truth about what sidelined you.
We all know the music game has a dark side, but Jaguar Wright is saying it's way darker than anyone ever thought. And at the very center of all of this mess, it's not just Jay-Z. She's pointing straight at Beyonce. Yeah, that Beyonce. The flawless queen, the cultural icon, the woman everyone calls untouchable. But Wright is flipping the whole narrative on its head, accusing Beyonce of being a cold, calculated mastermind behind some of the industry's ugliest moves. According to Wright, Beyonce didn't just sit back and benefit from the downfall of other artists, she engineered it. While Jay-Z usually catches all the heat for cutting down anyone who threatens their empire, Wright claims it's actually Beyonce who's been quietly pulling the strings. Powerful, ruthless, and with zero remorse. And there's one name that keeps popping up in this drama, Blue Cantrell. Remember her? She had the voice, the look, and her breakout hit, Hit 'em Up style, had her on track to dominate R&B. But just as fast as she blew up, she vanished. For years, whispers in the industry blamed Jay-Z, saying he blackballed her to protect his and Bey's throne. Power moves, secrets buried, careers destroyed. But now, Wright's dropping a bomb. She says that's only half the truth. Wright is dropping bomb after bomb, claiming Beyonce didn't just see Blue Cantrell as a professional threat, she saw her as a personal one too. And instead of handling it out in the open, Beyonce allegedly worked in the shadows to shut Blue's career down before it even had the chance to explode. We're talking full-on blackballing, media manipulation, and a quiet erasure so deep, it left fans scratching their heads, wondering whatever happened to Blue Cantrell. But here's where it gets even messier. Wright says Blue isn't the only one. According to her, there's a long list of artists, singers, songwriters, and even producers who felt the sting of Beyoncé's secret power plays, all while the world stood by, clapping and cheering as she rose to superstardom. Wright doesn't hold back. She claims part of that rise came at a heavy cost. Other people's careers, their mental health, and even their safety. This isn't just your typical celebrity beef. If Jaguar Wright's claims turn out to be true, Beyoncé hasn't just been defending her empire. She's been destroying anyone bold enough to step too close. And if more of these accusations keep bubbling up, that flawless, untouchable image of music royalty, it might just start to crack wide open. Back in the early 2000s, R&B was on fire. The airwaves were alive with powerhouse voices, bold beats, and artists who weren't just riding the wave, they were creating it.
I have a big crush on him now. I'll tell you that much. Did you still have a crush on him now? No, no, I didn't. No, I'm really selective about it.
What?
Really. I really like him though. And I don't care who he's dating. I always had a crush on him though.
If he came in right now and we were all not here.
What?
I'm just saying, you're in New York.
Yeah, okay. And what
you ran into him and everything was right. Would you make that play?
I wouldn't turn it down. Let's just put it that way.
You know why I said on the radio that I didn't think it would last though?
What, me and him?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you're about 25.
Why, he needs somebody younger than that?
At the end of the day, yeah.
Why did you say that?
Because I think at the end of the day, a younger, less savvy to the ways of the world broad.
Somebody a little bit more naive.
You said it, not me.
You're good at,
Do you know what I mean? Do you know
good at making me say things.
And one of those voices belonged to Blue Cantrell. Blue didn't just step into the scene, she kicked the door wide open. Her sound was raw yet polished, soulful with just the right edge. When she dropped her debut single, Hit 'Em Up Style Oops, it didn't just chart, it exploded. That track became an anthem overnight, blasting from car stereos, club speakers, and bedroom playlists everywhere. It was catchy, fierce, and empowering. Blue delivered it with a confidence that made people stop and say, "Who is this?" And just when folks thought she might be a one-hit wonder, she came right back with Breathe. That smooth, laid-back track showed off a whole new side of her artistry. It didn't just hit in the US, it took off globally, proving Blue wasn't just a star, she had international appeal. But then silence. No new singles, no tour buzz, no major appearances. It was like someone flipped a switch and shut everything down. One minute she was everywhere, and the next, it was as if Blue Cantrell had vanished into thin air. Blue didn't just slip out of the spotlight, she vanished from the industry completely. For an artist with that kind of talent and momentum, her sudden disappearance made zero sense. Fans were left scratching their heads, journalists were puzzled, and soon the whispers started getting louder. Some blamed label drama, others suspected personal struggles, but over time, a much darker narrative began to take shape.
Same person that robbed me for like $500 for a session ended up being in the studio while I was there with the president of the...
People started asking tougher questions. Was Blue pushed out? Was someone intentionally burying her career? According to Jaguar Wright, the answer is a chilling yes. And she claims the reasons go way deeper than your average industry politics. Wright suggests Blue Cantrell wasn't simply overlooked or forgotten, she was deliberately silenced. Wright hints at a calculated effort to erase Blue from the scene entirely, and this wasn't just about protecting record deals or dominating airplay. This could have involved powerful names, bitter personal rivalries, and ruthless behind-the-scenes moves that no one dares to speak about in public. Let's not forget, Blue Cantrell's rise wasn't some lucky break. She wasn't handed fame on a silver platter. This was a woman who paid her dues, fought tooth and nail, and built herself into an artist with real staying power. By the time the world caught on to her, Blue had already spent years grinding, perfecting her voice, crafting her style, and clawing her way into an industry that chews people up and spits them out. From the outside, her rise may have looked fast and effortless, but behind the scenes, it was anything but easy. So why did it all come crashing down so suddenly? If Wright's claims are true, Blue's silence wasn't her choice. It was forced.
A lot of tension because you're around each other so much and you're fighting and you're nitpicking, and definitely can relate to that.
When Blue burst onto the mainstream stage, the impact was instant. She didn't just step into R&B, she shook it to the core. That debut album didn't just turn heads, it announced to the world that Blue could go toe-to-toe with the biggest names in the game. But she wasn't about to be a one-hit wonder. Hot on the heels of her explosive debut, Blue dropped her second album, Bittersweet, and proved she wasn't playing around. Bittersweet wasn't just a solid follow-up, it was a bold, fearless leap forward. Blue's voice had matured, her confidence sharpened like a blade, and her sound was even more polished. The album's standout track, Breathe, wasn't just a hit, it was a global smash. It dominated international charts, flooded playlists worldwide, and introduced Blue to an even bigger audience. Even now, the HD remaster of the Breathe music video is still pulling in views on her official YouTube channel, a reminder of how timeless that record really is. Bittersweet held its own in the charts. Sure, it lived in the shadow of her groundbreaking debut, but make no mistake, Blue wasn't fading. The numbers were strong, the talent was undeniable. She had everything lined up to cement her place as R&B royalty. So why did it all suddenly stop? Guys, the voice was still there, her music was still making waves on Billboard and other major platforms. Fans were showing up, the public was hungry for more, and then out of nowhere, silence. No new singles, no big tours, no appearances, just gone. Blue Cantrell, once hailed as one of R&B's most promising voices, vanished from the spotlight. And her exit wasn't subtle, it was sudden, so abrupt it left fans and industry insiders genuinely stunned. This wasn't some small-time artist with a couple of radio spins. Blue had chart-topping success, global recognition, and a raw vocal power that could rival anyone in her lane. At one point in the early 2000s, some even whispered her name alongside Beyoncé's as a potential real challenger. And back then, that was no small comparison. So when Blue disappeared, people started asking questions. Blogs, message boards, and entertainment sites lit up with the same burning thought. What happened to Blue Cantrell? Was it a personal decision? Did she step away on her own terms, or was she pushed out? As the whispers grew louder, a darker possibility began to emerge. Could there have been powerful forces working behind closed doors to erase her? Was there more going on than the public ever saw? The deeper people dug, the more it started to feel like something just didn't add up. The buzz around Blue Cantrell never fully died. Every few years, her name pops back up, someone stumbles across one of her hits, falls back down the rabbit hole, and starts asking the same burning question. How does a woman with that voice, that energy, that potential just disappear without a trace? That silence left space, too much space. And now, with voices like Jaguar Wright speaking out, some folks are starting to believe Blue's disappearance wasn't some tragic mystery. It may have been a deliberate move by powerful forces in the music industry. A quiet erasure, a calculated silencing. At the very peak of Blue Cantrell's rise, there was one name she kept being compared to. One artist who was dominating the R&B landscape at the same time, but with a much bigger machine backing her. That name? Beyonce. And according to multiple voices in the industry, including Jaguar Wright, this wasn't just media hype stirring the pot. No, this was personal. Very personal. Blue wasn't just another singer floating around the charts. She had vocal chops that could turn heads. She had stage presence. She had attitude. And most importantly, she had momentum. The kind of momentum that some say could have made her a real threat to the throne. Early on, fans and industry insiders were already whispering that Blue Cantrell might be the one artist who could actually go toe-to-toe with Beyoncé, vocally, stylistically, and in pure star power. That comparison alone was enough to stir up tension. But according to Jaguar Wright, the drama went much deeper. Wright claims Beyoncé didn't just see Blue as competition. She saw her as a threat to her image, a threat to her dominance, and even more controversially, a potential threat to her relationship with Jay-Z. In the early 2000s, rumors swirled like wildfire about Blue Cantrell getting too close to Jay-Z, whether it was strictly professional or something more. Some claimed there was undeniable chemistry between them, while others insisted it ran deeper. Nothing was ever confirmed. But in an industry obsessed with power, perception, and image, even the hint of a problem can spark deadly consequences. According to Wright and others close to the scene, Beyoncé didn't want Blue anywhere near her orbit. Not in the spotlight, not near the throne, and definitely not near her man. That's when things allegedly began to shift. Opportunities that were once pouring in suddenly dried up. Media coverage went quiet. Industry doors that had been wide open slammed shut with no explanation. People started noticing how fast Blue's name vanished from conversations. Not because her talent faded, but because, as Wright suggests, someone powerful wanted her gone. And if Jaguar Wright's version of events is true, then that someone pulling the strings was none other than Beyoncé. Right in the middle of Blue Cantrell's meteoric rise, rumors began swirling about a heated feud between her and Beyoncé. Now, today, Beyoncé is one of the biggest pop icons on the planet. But back in the early 2000s, she was still carving her solo path. Fresh out of Destiny's Child and stepping into her own spotlight with Dangerously in Love, she was also in the early days of her now famous relationship with Jay-Z. Blue's connection to Jay-Z, that only made the gossip even juicier. The two shared a close friendship, and while Blue was climbing the charts with her R&B hits, Beyoncé was gaining traction as a solo artist. It didn't take long for whispers of tension and jealousy to start spreading like wildfire. Whenever anyone asked, Blue firmly denied any romantic involvement with Jay-Z. But in a candid moment with Wendy Williams, she let something slip that sent fans and insiders into overdrive. Blue admitted she had a major crush on Jay-Z, and she didn't care who knew. "I still have a crush on him now," she confessed. "I don't care who he's dating. I always had a crush on him." That little admission was like pouring gasoline on an already blazing fire. The rumors exploded overnight. Fans and industry insiders started dissecting every move, every lyric, and every interaction. The drama intensified when Blue openly called out the striking similarities between her own music and Beyoncé's, hinting that her sound and style may have been borrowed. Suddenly, this wasn't just about two R&B queens sharing space in the charts. This was starting to look like a high-stakes rivalry, fueled by music, ambition, and maybe even love. Blue wasn't shy about pointing out that some of her songs had been eerily mirrored in Beyoncé's work. That messy mix of friendship, unspoken feelings, and creative overlap set off the perfect storm of suspicion and rivalry. Whether it was all fact or blown way out of proportion, the buzz around a feud between Blue Cantrell and Beyoncé was loud enough to shake the industry, and some say it changed the course of Blue's career forever. This wasn't just about a hit song or one rivalry. This was about power, control, and protecting a carefully built empire. Blue Cantrell didn't simply fade away. According to the whispers, she was pushed out. And that push, it may have come straight from the top. Blue didn't stop at admitting her crush on Jay-Z or pointing out the timing of their careers. She went even further, calling out Beyoncé directly, and the shade she threw was impossible to ignore. In an interview with The Guardian, Blue didn't hold back when she highlighted how Beyoncé and Jay-Z's music video for Bonnie and Clyde looked eerily similar to her own video for Roundup, which, let's not forget, had dropped first. That wasn't just a casual observation. Blue was flat out suggesting that Beyoncé had copied her work. Imagine pouring your heart into creating something original, only to watch one of the biggest superstars on the planet swoop in, replicate your vision, and steal the spotlight. That kind of move doesn't just bruise egos, it can crush careers. Moves like that don't just bruise egos, they can completely derail careers. And if that wasn't enough, there's the mysterious, almost cryptic line Beyoncé slipped into her song Signs. She sings, "I was in love with a Sagittarius, I've been hurt by a Pisces." Now here's where things get juicy. Jay-Z, Beyoncé's husband, is a Sagittarius. Blue Cantrell, the woman rumored to be a little too close to Jay, she's a Pisces. Coincidence? Blue clearly didn't think so. She clapped back publicly, sending Beyoncé a warning that couldn't be mistaken for anything else. "Maybe she's trying to do it to get press," Blue said. "But I want to make her understand. If she goes there with me, it's the wrong move." This wasn't just a casual comment. Blue was firing a shot straight at the queen herself. She needs to understand what she's doing and what she's getting into. "I'm a master at singing. Say what you want, but that's a bold mix of confidence and warning packed into one." Blue wasn't just talking big, she was drawing a line in the sand. To her, Beyoncé's subtle lyric wasn't some harmless artistic choice. It was a jab. And Blue made it clear she wasn't afraid to stand her ground. Beneath all the glitz and glam, a battle was brewing. One where Beyoncé wasn't just protecting her career or even her relationship with Jay-Z, she may have been fighting to protect her entire empire. She wasn't just competing, she was actively trying to silence a rival. And then comes the kicker that still has people talking to this day. When Beyoncé and Jay-Z welcomed their first child in 2012, they named her Blue Ivy. At first glance, it might seem harmless, but for some, that name hit a little too close to home. It's strikingly similar to Blue Cantrell's own stage name. For some fans, it was nothing more than coincidence, but for others, it felt like a subtle, permanent mark, a way of rewriting history. almost like Beyonce was sending a message. Blue's name, her space, and her legacy were being erased. This wasn't just about petty artist disputes anymore. To some, it looked like a carefully calculated game of power, control, and erasure. Blue herself wasn't quiet about it either. She called it out loud, and the whispers in the industry have never stopped since. Sure, Beyonce might be the queen on stage, but behind the curtain, if you believe Blue's side of the story, things weren't nearly as glamorous. This wasn't just competition. This was personal. This was strategic, and it might just explain why Blue's blazing career came to such a sudden, mysterious halt. Then came 2004, the year everything changed for Blue Cantrell. After riding high on the success of her hits, things started to slow down, and not because of bad luck. This didn't feel like the natural ebb and flow of the industry. To Blue and those watching closely, her fall felt more like a setup. The moment her contract with Arista expired, it wasn't renewed. And insiders whispered it wasn't about creative differences or lack of talent. It felt like doors were being slammed shut on purpose. But get this, the label didn't just drop her. They literally forgot to renew her contract. That's right. The very company that was supposed to be backing her career simply let her slip through the cracks. For Blue, it was a gut punch, and it confirmed something she had probably been suspecting all along. She hadn't made anywhere near the money she deserved during her time there. The financial betrayal stung just as much as her career coming to a screeching halt. In an eye-opening interview with You Know I Got Soul, Blue opened up about what she would have done differently if she had the chance to rewind time. Her biggest regret? Not educating herself about the music business before signing that life-changing contract. It sounds simple, but in an industry infamous for chewing up and spitting out young artists, it was a brutal lesson learned too late. I would have gotten my own lawyer because the one I used ended up representing them, Blue revealed. It was a conflict of interest. They were all working together to basically take what was mine. Just imagine the very person who was supposed to protect her was secretly working against her. Nobody really knows the whole truth but me and them, Blue said flatly. But I was really taken advantage of. And to make matters worse, there were already public tensions swirling around Beyonce and Jay-Z at the time. Combine that with the industry politics, the financial betrayal, and the whispers of sabotage, and you start to see the full messy picture of the uphill battle Blue was facing. Blue wasn't just being squeezed out financially and professionally, she was also drowning in whispers. Behind the scenes, rumors about her connection to Jay-Z and her alleged rivalry with Beyonce were swirling like a storm, making her an easy target for anyone wanting to keep her out of the spotlight. In a rare 2012 interview, Blue finally broke her silence about those missing years, and her words revealed just how heavy it all had become. I needed to take time off, she admitted. Honestly, I spent a lot of time overseas. I was living in London. I needed a break just to take time for myself because being an artist is a 24/7 thing. It's no sleep, no eating, and it's a lot of hard work. But let's be real, that time away wasn't just a casual pause. For Blue, it felt like a forced retreat. When the industry shuts doors in your face, sometimes the only option left is to step back. But in Blue's case, stepping back didn't feel like a choice. It felt like survival. When you piece it all together, the stalled contract, the financial betrayal, the rumors of personal conflict, and the crushing pressure of an industry designed to protect its golden stars, it's hard to see her disappearance as an accident. Blue's fall wasn't just about music. It was about power, control, and a system that decides which voices get amplified and which ones get erased. And while Beyonce kept rising, cementing her place as an untouchable icon, Blue's story became one of what could have been a cautionary tale about a powerful artist who got swallowed whole by the machine and those determined to protect the throne. Even after everything Blue Cantrell endured, the stalled career, the industry backstabbing, the swirling rumors and betrayals, she never fully disappeared from music. In that 2012 interview, Blue dropped a tantalizing hint that had fans on edge. She'd been working on a third album, and she didn't just casually bring it up. She was confident, even bold. This next release will shoot straight to the top, she promised. Blue sounded ready to reclaim her crown, ready to remind the world exactly what she was made of. But then came the kicker. That album, it never saw the light of day. For reasons still shrouded in mystery, her big comeback just never materialized. Was it more industry roadblocks, a personal decision to step back again, or was there something darker happening behind the scenes? Fans were left hanging once again, wondering if Blue had finally been shut out for good. Fast forward to March 2020, right before the world turned upside down with the pandemic, and Blue made a rare public appearance. And just like that, she reminded everyone she's still here. She still had that magic. When Blue hit the stage in London as part of Fat Man Scoop's Throwback Arena Tour, sharing the spotlight with nostalgic heavyweights like Nelly, Shaggy, Eve, Maya, and Salt and Peppa, it was a night of pure celebration. But even among all those legends, Blue stole the show. She reminded everyone why her voice, her energy, and her presence once had the industry buzzing. But it leaves us asking the same burning question. What really caused Blue Cantrell's sudden fade from the spotlight? This wasn't some quick blow or a single bad deal. According to those close to the scene, it was a slow, calculated game of manipulation, a quiet takedown that unfolded while everyone was distracted by gossip headlines about her supposed feud with Beyonce. Behind all that noise, something much darker was happening. Something Blue didn't fully talk about until years later. The story traces back to 2003. Blue was still riding high off the success of her debut album, but she carried an old fear from her past, a fear that wouldn't let her rest. Years earlier, before fame, before record deals, when she was barely 18 and struggling to make ends meet, Blue had done a photo shoot. It wasn't glamorous, it was a desperate decision made in hard times. But now, as her star rose and cameras followed her every move, Blue grew increasingly anxious that those photos might resurface and destroy her carefully built career. Desperate for advice and protection, she reached out to someone she thought would understand the pressures of fame. Sean Diddy Combs, a music industry titan, a man who had seen it all. But instead of the support she hoped for, Blue was met with a cold, dismissive response. I told him I was worried those photos might come out. He said, "I've seen you. You looked good." That reply stuck with Blue not just because it was unsettling, but because it exposed a harsh truth. She wasn't being seen as an artist, a creator, or a force in R&B. She was being reduced to an object, someone to look at, control, and use. And Diddy? He wasn't some random peripheral figure in her story. He played a central role. Rumors swirled for years that Blue and Diddy shared more than just professional ties. Nothing was ever officially confirmed, but their closeness was enough to spark speculation. And that blurred boundary left Blue vulnerable in ways she never saw coming. Fast forward to 2024, and Blue finally said the quiet part out loud. She didn't chalk her stalled career up to bad timing or simple label mishandling. No, she called it what it really was: exploitation. Blue named two men she says were responsible for holding her back: Jay-Z and Diddy. This wasn't about unlucky breaks or missed opportunities. According to Blue, this was a deliberate effort to suppress her voice, keep her quiet, and make sure she never rose higher than the ones already in power. Jay-Z, deeply connected to Beyonce, who reportedly didn't want Blue anywhere near her orbit, and Diddy, a heavyweight with massive influence behind the scenes, allegedly formed an unspoken blockade that kept Blue locked out of the industry. And when Blue finally opened up about those early years, she didn't sugarcoat it.
And not like what he said, because they need those Gus words to make sure.
According to her, Jay-Z wasn't the protector or mentor everyone believed him to be. He was part of the system that made sure her light never got the chance to shine too bright. The music world loves to paint Jay-Z as a kingmaker, but according to Blue, the truth was much darker. She claims he positioned her like a pawn, traded her for someone else's gain, and then left her out in the cold. And who came out on top? According to Blue, it was Diddy, the man she thought was part of her inner circle. Instead, he ended up benefiting the most while she got caught in a web of manipulation she couldn't escape. Blue describes being pushed into situations where her options were limited, the pressure was nonstop, and in the end, she was discarded like yesterday's news. And the harshest part, Blue isn't alone in telling this kind of story. But when it came to her biggest obstacle, she didn't hold back. Blue pointed her finger straight at Beyonce. This wasn't just about competition. Blue claims Beyonce didn't simply outshine her like a natural rival would. She actively worked to shut Blue down. By 2004, Blue's momentum wasn't just slowing, it was vanishing. Her label deal disappeared, her presence on the charts faded. Doors that had once swung wide open now slammed shut with a thud. Blue insists this wasn't the usual cutthroat nature of the music business. This was personal, this was planned. She claims Beyonce didn't just borrow her ideas or rise above her on pure talent alone. Behind the scenes, Blue says, Beyonce quietly and deliberately closed doors to her success, starting with Arista Records. After 2 hit albums, including the international smash Breathe, Blue should have been unstoppable. But instead, she was suddenly frozen out. After back-to-back smashes like Hit 'Em Up Style, Bittersweet, and Breathe, Blue should have been gearing up for her 3rd album and cementing her place as an R&B powerhouse. But instead, her contract vanished, not canceled, not renegotiated, just gone. According to Blue, the label, quote, literally forgot to renew it. That one oversight cost her everything. No contract meant no funding, no promotion, no support, and no chance to build on the momentum she had already fought so hard to create. I would have gotten my own lawyer, Blue said later, because the lawyer I trusted ended up representing them. It was a clear conflict of interest. They were all working together to basically take what was mine. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't sloppy business. Blue says she lost control. Her entire music catalog was stuck in limbo. Her royalties were mismanaged. And the very person who was supposed to fight for her interests, he was working for the other side. Blue swears this wasn't just an unfortunate chain of events. It was intentional. And where was Beyonce in all of this? Not on any of Blue's contracts. But as Blue points out, she was everywhere in the fallout. Calls that used to come stopped without warning. Collaborators vanished overnight. Industry doors that once swung open slammed shut quietly with no explanation. Meanwhile, Beyonce's star kept climbing. As Blue Cantrell was being systematically frozen out of the music industry, Beyonce was building her empire, dominating the charts, the headlines, and the throne that, according to Blue, she would do anything to protect. An empire was built, an empire forged with some of the very people Blue once considered allies. Sean, Paul, key label executives, top producers, and powerful radio insiders. Meanwhile, Blue kept her public comments calm, measured, even polite. But if you read between the lines, the message was crystal clear. Blue believed Beyonce had effectively blackballed her from the industry. Just look at the timeline. Blue's 2nd album starts to underperform in the US. Suddenly, Arista forgets to renew her contract. At the exact same time, Beyonce is signing major deals, locking down high-profile features, winning Grammys, and steadily climbing the ladder to superstardom. And Blue, she faded. Not with a bang, but with a calculated, crushing silence. This didn't look like bad luck. It didn't feel like an accident. To Blue, it seemed like a carefully orchestrated strategy designed to erase her presence altogether. What makes Blue's story even more heartbreaking is her belief that Beyonce never even had to compete with her. According to Blue, there was room for both women to thrive. Both could have dominated R&B in their own lanes, lifting each other up. But instead, Blue feels Beyonce used her power, influence, and connections to quietly push her out, making sure there would be only one queen left standing. Even fans started picking up on the eerie symbolism. When Beyonce and Jay-Z named their daughter Blue Ivy, those who remembered Blue Cantrell's rise in raw talent couldn't help but wonder, was this just coincidence or a deliberate move to send a message? "I know Jay is behind her downfall," one fan wrote online. Another added, "There's no way Beyonce naming her daughter Blue Ivy is just a coincidence. No way." For Blue, the signs were impossible to ignore. The music industry had chosen its queen and quietly erased any threat. Not with diss tracks or public feuds, but with cold, calculated silence. Doors didn't slam. They just stopped opening. Voices were muted, careers were derailed. And when Blue tried to speak out, the world didn't listen. Until that terrifying night in 2014 changed everything. Blue, per TMZ cameras, captured a haunting scene. Blue, barefoot, running through the streets of Santa Monica in the early morning hours, screaming that someone was trying to kill her by poisoning her with gas. Eyewitnesses described her as frantic, dodging invisible threats, waving her arms and yelling for help. This wasn't a private meltdown hidden from view, it was a very public unraveling. When police arrived, Blue told them she was being targeted, insisting someone wanted her dead. Officers detained her for a psychological evaluation and took her to a nearby hospital. She wasn't arrested, but she wasn't protected either. For many, it seemed like the final chapter of a rising star turned cautionary tale. But others couldn't help but wonder, was Blue truly losing her grip on reality? Or was she finally cracking under the weight of a system determined to silence her? The media's reaction? Ridicule. Mockery. Headlines laughed at Blue Cantrell instead of asking if something deeper was happening. Late-night hosts turned her pain into punchlines. But those who had been paying attention knew this wasn't new. Blue had been warning people for years. She spoke openly about being pushed out, blackballed, and exploited. And now she was claiming her life was in danger. For anyone who remembered Blue's accusations against Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Diddy, her words didn't sound crazy at all. They sounded familiar. What Blue described mirrored exactly what Jaguar Wright, former background singer for Jay-Z, revealed in her viral videos. Jaguar explained how the music industry doesn't just silence you when you speak out, it destroys you. It slaps labels on you. Unstable, unreliable, crazy, all to discredit your truth. Jaguar even named other artists who suffered sudden, mysterious tragedies, like Eric Sermon, who reportedly jumped out of a window around the same time Jay-Z released an album in 2001. That incident was never fully explained, just like Blue's disappearing contract or the strange coincidence of Beyonce's daughter's name. The truth, it was easier for the public to believe Blue was mentally unstable than to accept she might be speaking hard truths. Easier to mock her breakdown than investigate the sinister forces that may have driven her there. For those really paying attention, Blue's public unraveling didn't look random. It looked like the reaction of someone who'd been silenced too many times and finally cracked under the weight of it all. From betrayal to trauma, Blue Cantrell's story is the painful fallout of a music industry built on power plays, loyalty tests, and the ruthless sidelining of anyone bold enough to challenge the throne. And when you look back at the meteoric rise of Beyonce and Jay-Z, it's hard not to notice something chilling. So many other talented female R&B singers seem to hit unexpected roadblocks around the exact same time. Take Maya, for example. She was everywhere. Award shows, hit singles, major tours. Then suddenly, she faded into the indie scene. Or Monica, another powerhouse with a voice that could stop you in your tracks. As Beyonce's solo career started dominating mainstream radio, Monica's airplay mysteriously dwindled. And then there's Aaliyah, already transitioning into Hollywood and expanding her career in massive ways, only to tragically lose her life in a 2001 plane crash. That same year, Destiny's Child was exploding in popularity. Some fans and industry insiders don't chalk this up to coincidence. They argue there's been a systemic pattern where the music machine funnels resources, attention, and power into certain stars, often at the expense of others who were equally talented and on the rise. It's as if the spotlight narrowed just as Beyonce's star began to shine the brightest, leaving other incredible artists struggling, or worse, erased entirely. But What do you think, Bao? Was this just the harsh reality of the business or a calculated effort to make sure only one queen ruled the charts? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if you love this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive. I post videos like this every week, uncovering the secrets and hidden truths behind your favorite celebrities. See you on the next one.